Well, it's kind of sad right now because we're getting into early to mid-December, and that means the hunting's winding down. And I do a lot with whitetail all year. In fact, my first client trip is beginning this Monday, and I'll be on the road. My typical December client trip is, and this year it'll be 8 clients in 9 days. So I stay out of one hotel room. I will visit 8 clients and have a day off in between, and that's now starting. I'll have clients every month. I think I'm taking the month of April off, but I'll have every month through September. So September is my last client month. And I can't believe this time has flown by because I love hunting. I love the build up to the season. I love the rut. I love late season. We still have some muzzleloader hunting to do. Dylan and I are actually going out to the blind this afternoon for muzzleloader hunt. Last muzzleloader hunt in Minnesota, other than they have a CWD hunt the end of right after Christmas. I think it's 31st, 1st, and 2nd of January. So we'll hit that, but it's coming to a close. The cool thing is, though, there's still some rut action, and I like to focus on the rut action. I love the timing of it. I love that game of timing the rut and helping you out there understand the timing of the rut. That's why we developed Rutcasts through HuntWise this year, is to help you follow the rut accurately. And we'll do that as we're refining Rutcasts going into even next year, so it'll be closer related to what you do. You know, a lot of places don't figure in the second rut, so it just shows it into one big climax of the rut. It doesn't show that double bell curve and triple bell curve, and I'll explain that. And that's why there is a second rut in most areas, and that's why there's a trickle rut in other areas. You know, again, I talk about in the northern areas where fawns that are born too early die because there's snow and extreme cold temperatures in the spring, and fawns that are born too late die because they're too small going into the winter. Then that rut gets really tight. And that means if you have a tight rut and those does are coming into heat at that time, some can get missed even easier if they're all coming in at the same time. Obviously, if there's one buck for every 3 does, or whatever the ratio is, and some people think it's a lot worse or better, but regardless, let's just say it's 1 buck for every 3 does. Imagine if every doe came in the same 2 or 3 day window. That means that they're not going to be bred. A huge portion aren't going to be bred. Now, obviously, it's stretched out a lot longer. I was just using an extreme example. But where you go down to the south, and that can include Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Louisiana, Florida, areas where there's more of a trickle rut, those fawns can be born early, they can be born late. Then your rutting activity is largely going to be based on at least daylight activity, the weather. So if it's really hot, really windy, stormy, not going to see much rutting action during the day because it's going to take place at night or not at all. It's going to be pushed off. So I like to focus on really good weather more than ever in those areas because that'll help you time when you might see a big buck movement during the daylight, when you actually get a little cold front. And cold front, it's all relative. You know, when you're in Florida and you're averaging a high of 82 and all of a sudden drops to 72 or 97 to 85, that's a cold front. You know, something happened to make that drop. Big storms, big winds, that puts deer in their beds, makes them miss feedings, and they'll be moving after that. So that's why I always like focusing on the weather for that hunting. But when you get in the middle of the country and then north, you're going to have those second and third ruts. And I talk about that bell curve. You know, here's the primary rut, big bell curve. Here's a secondary rut, and here's that third rut like this. And what you're doing is you're basing it on this when all those does are coming into estrus right here when there's an exponential growth of the number of does coming in, they can't all be bred. And so then you fast forward 25 to 30 days, fast forward 25 to 30 days, and it gets a little gray there. But around here, basically, early to 10th of November would be peak rut, and you'd have that exponential growth 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th of November. Well, fast forward to a month from then, end of November, early December, up through December 10th, you're going to have that second rut. And then you do the same going to early January, you're going to have that third rut. Areas that are further north are going to experience more of those defined times of rut. But even then, you can have fawns that are missed. I mean, look at all the bucks that have been shot when you get into gun season, and then all of a sudden a fawn is coming into heat early December, but there's simply no bucks around in that location. Maybe they're just in a little isolated area. She's with a mom, another offspring, button buck, another last year's doe and fawn. So there might be a group of 4 or 5. They're just not exposed to a buck during that time because they're isolated. They've been slammed back into a certain cover option and food option during the gun season to escape hunting pressure, and they just get missed. So all of a sudden they're coming back in, going into that third rut time in early January. So it does happen. It's important to realize that. It's real. And we're trying to take advantage of it tonight. And I'll even tell you a sign of that when you talk down here. of when you see that happening in an area. It's pretty easy to see if you have some trail cameras out, which is kind of cool. That's why I like trail cameras. You just learn so much about buck behavior and how they even move or relate to your land or the land that you're hunting, public land or private. Number 2, where am I hunting? I'm focusing when it gets into the late season like this, early to mid-December and later, directly to food. I mean, food dictates where the deer move all year long, but when it gets into December, there's not a lot of food left. So if you have quality food options, that's where you'll find the deer. It's crazy. We had a storm move through the other night. We got 6 to 8 inches of snow. We had 40-mile-an-hour winds. It was a blizzard all night, and it was really cool to see yesterday. After that storm had passed, early morning, meaning 5, 6 a.m., deer were feeding in the morning right away. They're feeding last night. It was awesome last night. Dante, that you might have seen on videos before, he shot a nice buck last night, and it was awesome. They got good footage. He was sitting with his buddy Alec in the blind, Alec Moyer, and that was the first time they shot a deer together. They've sat a lot together, so they broke the curse last night and got a deer, and Alec got it on film, got Dante walking up to it, seeing it for the first time. That wasn't staged or anything, so it was pretty cool. And then we got to help Dante and Alec recover the deer, get them out of the woods, get them out of the snow. It was a fun time. And then have a little dinner to boot after that. So it was a good time, but it's all focusing around food sources. And we have those quality food sources. So we suck deer in this time of year. And that's what you need to look for. That's what you need to build. You need to build it on private land, look for it on public land. And then you'll find that rutting activity. And so it's so critical, because if you don't have that food, you're not going to have consistent doe use. If you don't have that consistent doe use and buck use, you're not going to see that secondary rut activity. So it's no doubt that right now we have bucks going into our mock scrapes, and even though you don't see a scrape on the ground, they're coming in and licking the mock scrape. And the licking branch, that vertical vine, they're hitting it, they're just coming in. And again, we don't put any scent on those. They're just coming in and they're leaving their scent. Another deer leaves their scent, and pretty soon they just keep using it every time they walk through the area. So it's pretty cool to see them hitting it right now at this time of the last few days, I would say, of the second rut. Again, that's kind of random, because you can have does come in early, late. So once the rut starts, it can be trickle, it can be random even after that, even though in defined areas you could have some outliers in there. So it always pays to follow the food source, because if you have those does and fawns in those food sources, you're going to have those bucks, especially those rut bucks. So that's where we're going out hunting tonight. Number 3, what's really cool is we've been able to notice this, I think it was 3 mornings ago. I had 2 decent bucks that I saw right before daylight, and then 2 decent bucks right after, one of the same ones. And they're all in an area between 2 cell cams and only about 150 yards apart. And one was following a doe. And it was one of the younger bucks following a doe. In fact, one of the bucks, I think, is the one Dante shot last night. Bottom line is they were all in the same area. And we saw the older one, 45 we call him. He's really cool. His antlers go up like a 45-degree angle. He's 4 years old. I've been able to pass him 2 or 3 times this year. So it was really cool to see him in there. We saw him 3 different times in that morning. But you can guarantee there's a hot doe. All of a sudden you have these bucks in that area. They're moving, different cameras. We had them over about 3 cameras at that time. And so we knew there was a hot doe in the area. And it's no wonder last night we saw a really nice buck on a cell cam over there that we can't quite recognize. It was in the back, and I'm not sure which one it is. It looked like a really nice mature buck. But bottom line is they're still around that area. And it's amazing how one doe this time of year coming into heat can suck in a lot of bucks in the area into that spot. And of course, what else was it combined with? But high quality food. We have those high quality brassica plots there and early green plots, and they're really centering around those. And where Dante was hunting, it was right across the valley from there on the same parcel, and he had standing corn right there. So standing corn, brassica this time of year, magnets. Number 4, with that being said, the worst thing you could do is be risky. Last night, the spot that Dylan and I are going to, I had a slim chance that I could sit there and not spook deer, but a high likelihood I would. Tonight, it's blowing more parallel to the plot. I think we'll be a lot safer where our scent is actually depositing. And really we can't avoid, last night I hunted, I actually saw 8 does and fawns, 3 more across the field. So I saw a good cluster of does and fawns, just no bucks. And I'm going to a different spot tonight. I really wanted to hunt the spot we're going to tonight last night, but with good conditions tonight, why would I push it? You really have to be patient. Make sure your winds, make sure you can get in and out of those stands without spooking the deer. Because if you spook the deer this time of year, think of them as herds, and that herd will move. The whole herd moves somewhere else. They might move a mile away, a half mile away. But bottom line, it's easy to spook that herd because it seems like when one moves, they all move. You're not going to have that lone mature buck hang back. he's the first one gone. He's not coming back. You might have some of those does and fawns. Bottom line, you spook that herd, you're spooking your hunt, you're spooking your remaining rut days that you have left in this season. Number 5, evenings rule. When you're hunting food, or you're hunting food source movement, like where I shot a real nice buck with a bow right here. He's right next to the food source, about 80 yards away, 100 yards away. Water hole. I love hunting spots like that because I can get in and out of those. It's just a quick stop for those deer coming in and out. They're focusing on food somewhere, and I'm hunting close to the bottom of the funnel. The bottom of the funnel meaning the food source, meaning deer coming from all different directions. I'm hunting off the side close to the bottom of that funnel, but in an area where I can get in and out without spooking that food source. And that's why those evenings rule. You're positioning yourself to either hunt deer on the way to those food sources or on the food source safely, like we're doing tonight with a muzzleloader. We're hunting a couple different blinds tonight with muzzleloaders that we can get in and out without spooking those deer as they transition to somewhere else after dark. And that's what we do. We watch those deer, watch them cross the field, get out of there. Once we see them move, it's a quick exit because we don't want more deer to come. We kind of look for our window and then get out of there. And the whole thing we're doing is trying to get in and out without spooking the herd, but certainly that evening food source because we want to preserve those food sources for later. You know, I can't hunt back because of the seasons ending. I can't hunt for about, 16, 17 days, somewhere around there, before I can take a seat at any of these spots. But even then, I want to be very careful with this last night and not spook the deer. I think they'll forgive me after a week or two, but bottom line is we still want to take those precautions because we're still looking for deer. We want to see which ones are alive. We want to get trail cam photos. And if we're spooking out the herd, we're not going to get those pictures that we would expect over the next week, let alone it might affect future hunts. So evenings rule, don't try to hunt a morning stand at this time of year despite an evening stand. There's spots that I can hunt on this property and take a morning sit without spooking the evening hunts that we're doing. And that wouldn't be a bad idea to do so. In fact, today wouldn't have been a bad idea, but you know, great day to shoot videos before I leave for my trip. So that's what we're doing today. We have 5 videos on the list to get done, and then we can go sit in a blind. So otherwise, morning wouldn't have been a bad time to go hunt if I could have found an out-of-the-way bedding area where I can get in and wait for deer to come to me. Not a bad choice in the mornings this time of year, but make sure you're not doing it at the expense of your great evening hunt. Number 6, hunt cast. That's the weather algorithm I helped develop with HuntWise. We're always again refining like that, just like rut cast. But bottom line is when you're looking at, you're seeing the big temperature drops, there's things that happen to make those temperatures drops take place. Recently we had the big temperature drop, but we had the 6 to 8 inches of snow, 40-mile-an-hour winds, we had blizzard conditions. It makes deer hungry. They're losing energy, so they get hungry. They're stressed out. Stress burns energy, so they get hungry. And then, of course, they're missing feedings out on their big food sources, open food sources, where they can just gobble up food. So when that passes, they're ready to put the feed bag on. And when you combine that with second rut and third rut opportunity and groups of deer that are herded up, you can have a lot of fun. Something I want to mention with the weather. Sometimes we look at good rated days, but if you see those winds right now at 20, 25 mile an hour, 30 mile an hour gusts, that could really suppress deer movement just because of the sheer wind. So make sure you see that. Also, this time of year, when you start getting temperatures in the upper Midwest in the 20s and relatively calm conditions, deer are going to feed. They're just feeding. They need to consume more food to create energy, to stay alive, and to produce warmth. At the same time, that could be all relative. That could be 40s in the central part of the country. In southern Ohio, you might not be waiting for a high of 18 degrees, but boy, a high of 34 will be cold. It's all relative again. You know, down in Florida, I don't know if that'd be a high of 72, 77, but again, it's all relative. It's colder than average temps, or average temps are going to get deer on their feet and moving this time of year because they need that energy to survive. And again, when you combine all of that, when you combine the second, third rut opportunity, the food source magnets, the evening food source movement priority, these buck clusters that are centering around, you can notice that and see that. Maybe you see some scrapes open this time of year. Great time to head to the woods and expect and plan for second and third rut opportunity. Again, my favorite spot to hunt are transitions to food sources or transitions coming from bedding areas in the afternoon, evening that's heading to food source. You might have those areas where deer are coming out of cover, even on a neighbor's property or in a distant property. They're coming out of cover. You're hunting the edge of that cover. Then they have open cover before they get to their food source. People are saying, well, they're not getting to that food source till after dark. We'll go find where they're coming out of. I call those bedding areas, staging areas. You're hunting that movement where they're first stepping out of their bedding area, they're moving around, making rub scrapes, you can see those scrapes, and then they're heading off after dark. Great spots to hunt too, but you're focusing on that evening food source movement and you're expecting that rut, and there's still some great opportunity even for rutting activity throughout the year. But bottom line, this time of the year, if you're hunting food sources, you always have a chance, especially when those deer are clustering and you're hunting hidden, unpressured food sources on public or private land, you'll have a chance at whitetails. And this is a fun time to hunt in the snow. Deer are on the move, they're feeding, they're herded up. If you don't have them on your land, go find them somewhere else. If you don't have them in your favorite public land hotspot that you hunted all October, November, go find where they're at, because they are somewhere. When you find them, you're gonna find numbers and you're going to have a great hunt this winter. Make sure you get out there and enjoy this winter late season hunting opportunity. Folks, I wanna make sure you check out my web class video series, whether it's how to design your food plot program or how to design your property in general. And we have a new one coming out that'll be how to hunt the rut. But these bucks back here are a testament. Some of these bucks go back to 93. They're even in different states. I urge you to check out those web classes so that you can help yourself, help your land, help your hunt. The link is in the description. And also for those that have tried them out, I encourage you to offer some feedback in the comments below. Thank you.